My ex-girlfriend from middle school married a tech CEO worth $50 million. One day, I ran into her on a red-eye flight to New York. She mocked me as a community college dropout and bragged about her penthouse and designer lifestyle. Then, a passenger collapsed with a heart attack, the plane hit violent turbulence, and the announcement came, "Is there a pilot on board who can assist in the cockpit?" She grabbed my arm, panicking about dying. That's when the flight attendant recognized me. Before I tell everything, comment where are you watching from? Because what happened next shut her up forever. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Daniel Reeves, and I'm 30 years old. I've been a commercial airline pilot for 8 years now, but my path here wasn't exactly conventional. When I was 15, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The treatments were expensive, experimental, not covered by insurance. My mom was overwhelmed trying to work full-time and care for him. My younger sister was only 12. Someone had to step up. So I made a choice. I dropped out of my dream university after 1 semester and got a job. Actually, 3 jobs. Construction during the day, warehouse night shifts, weekend maintenance work at the local airport. That last one changed everything. The mechanics there saw how fascinated I was with aircraft, how I'd spend my breaks just staring at the planes. One of them, an old Air Force engineer named Tom, started teaching me. Basic mechanics first, then aerodynamics, then he let me sit in cockpits and learn the instruments. My father died 6 months later. But before he did, he made me promise something: don't give up on flying. Find a way. So I did. I enlisted in the Air Force, got my pilot training, became a test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base. 5 years of flying experimental aircraft, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Then a car accident during a rainy night off base, fractured leg, complications, months of rehab. I couldn't meet the physical requirements for military jets anymore, but I could still fly commercial. So I transitioned, got my civilian licenses, and spent the last 8 years flying passengers safely across the country. That's the short version. The real version is messy and painful and full of sacrifices. But I loved every minute of it because I was doing what I was meant to do. Which brings me to that night. The red-eye flight from LAX to Newark. I was deadheading, pilot speak for traveling as a passenger for work positioning. The airline needed me in New York for a morning flight to London. I'd just finished a brutal week of flights, was exhausted, looking forward to 6 hours of sleep on the plane. I boarded around 11 p.m., the cabin already dim for the overnight flight. I had a window seat in business class, one of the few perks of being crew. I settled in with a book about aviation history, trying to decompress. The cabin was quiet, most passengers getting comfortable for sleep. Then I heard it. That laugh. High-pitched, entitled, cutting through the peaceful atmosphere like nails on a chalkboard. I'd know that laugh anywhere. I looked up and my stomach dropped. Rebecca Martinez. My ex-girlfriend from middle school, 15 years older but unmistakably her. Designer everything, clothes, bags, sunglasses at 11 p.m. She was complaining loudly to a flight attendant about overhead space, her assistant struggling behind her with shopping bags that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I tried to make myself invisible. Angled toward the window, raised my book higher. Maybe she wouldn't notice me. Maybe I'd get lucky for once. But luck wasn't on my side that night. Rebecca finally sat down, directly across the aisle from me. She pulled out her phone immediately, taking selfies with the cabin as her background. That's when our eyes met in her phone screen reflection. Her perfectly painted lips curved into a smile that made my blood run cold. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for 10 rows to hear. "Danny? Danny Reeves? Is that really you?" I lowered my book slowly. "Hello, Rebecca." She practically shrieked. "I can't believe it. What are the odds?" She was already unbuckling, moving across the aisle to lean over the empty middle seat between us. Her perfume was overwhelming, some expensive scent that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Business class. "Wow, Danny, good for you. Did you save up? I know these tickets can be pricey for, you know, regular people." The condescension was immediate. Effortless. Like she'd been practicing for 15 years just for this moment. "I'm traveling for work," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Oh, what do you do?" She tilted her head with fake interest. "Last I heard, well, after you dropped out of college, I assumed things were tough. But good for you for finding something." There it was. The first jab disguised as encouragement. Rebecca had always been good at that. "I work in aviation," I said simply. She laughed, the sound grating. "Like, at the airport? Baggage handler? Ticket counter?" She leaned closer conspiratorially. "No shame in honest work. My husband always says everyone serves a purpose. Even if it's not glamorous." I could have corrected her right then. Could have shown her my captain's license. But something stopped me. Maybe I wanted to see how far she'd go. Maybe I was just too tired to care. Something like that, I said, turning back to my book. But Rebecca wasn't done. Not even close. She settled into her seat, phone still out, and launched into what I can only describe as a monologue about her perfect life. Every sentence designed to make me feel small. You know, I almost flew private tonight, but Ethan, that's my husband, Ethan Chen, the tech CEO, he's flying separately on his jet and I wanted to do some shopping in LA first. Have you been to Rodeo Drive lately? Probably not, I guess. But oh my god, the new Gucci collection. She gestured to her bags. I just couldn't resist. Ethan always says I have expensive taste, but he loves that about me. Says it's sexy when a woman knows her worth. I made a non-committal sound and kept reading. Or pretending to read. The words weren't registering anymore. We're going to this charity gala I'm hosting in Manhattan, she continued. For children's hospitals. I'm like, so passionate about giving back. We're expecting to raise hundreds of thousands. Ethan wanted to donate everything himself, but I told him, no, babe, we need to let others feel good about contributing too. I'm all about community. Always have been. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Rebecca had never been about community. She'd been about Rebecca. That sounds great, I managed. It really is. And you know what? My Instagram following has just exploded. I hit 500,000 followers last month. Can you believe it? 500,000 people following my journey. She showed me her phone, scrolling through perfectly filtered photos, exotic locations, designer clothes, charity events where she posed with sick children like they were props. I've become kind of an influencer. Brands actually pay me now. It's wild. I never thought when we were in middle school that I'd end up here. But then again, I always knew I was destined for more. The unspoken addition hung in the air, unlike you. I glanced at the other passengers. Some were clearly trying to sleep and shooting annoyed looks our way. Others were awake now, listening to this one-sided conversation with various expressions of discomfort. Her assistant, a young woman probably in her early 20s, sat quietly, staring at her phone, looking like she wished she was anywhere else. Rebecca, I said quietly. Some people are trying to sleep. She waved her hand dismissively. It's a red eye. Everyone's awake anyway. She raised her voice slightly, as if performing for an audience. Besides, it's not every day you run into your middle school ex who took such a different path than you. It's fascinating, really. Like, what were the pivotal moments that led to such different outcomes? I closed my book. Rebecca, it's been a long day. I'd really just like to rest. Oh, of course. I'm sure you're exhausted from your airport job. She said it with sympathy that felt poisonous. Here, let me at least buy you a drink. Flight attendant? She flagged down a passing crew member. Champagne, please. 2 glasses. I'm fine, thank you, I said to the flight attendant. Oh, come on. It's on me. I insist. Rebecca smiled brightly. I know these prices can add up for people on tighter budgets. The flight attendant looked between us, clearly uncomfortable with the dynamic she was witnessing. Sir, would you like anything? Just water, please. Rebecca laughed again. Water. So responsible. That's what I always liked about you, Danny. You were always so practical. Not flashy. Not ambitious in that cutthroat way. Just steady and predictable. It's admirable in its own way. The backhanded compliments kept coming. Each one perfectly calibrated to sound supportive while actually being degrading. It was an art form, really. The flight attendant brought Rebecca's champagne and my water. Rebecca held up her glass. To reunions. And to everyone finding their place in life, wherever that may be. I didn't toast. Just took a sip of my water and returned to my book. But she wouldn't stop. For the next 20 minutes, she talked. About her penthouse in Tribeca, 60 million, can you imagine, her Hampton house, just a little beach cottage, only 8 bedrooms, her upcoming trip to the Maldives, Ethan surprised me with it, he's so romantic, her charity work, I'm basically Mother Teresa with better clothes, haha, her influencer brand, authenticity is everything, you know. Every word was a reminder that she'd made it and I hadn't. That she'd escaped her middle-class upbringing and I was stuck in mine. That she was important and I was invisible. What she didn't know, couldn't know, was that I was perfectly happy with my life. I loved flying. Loved the responsibility of keeping passengers safe. Loved the view from the cockpit that no amount of money could buy. I had good friends, a job I was passionate about, and a life built on things that actually mattered. But explaining that to Rebecca would be pointless. She measured worth in dollar signs and Instagram followers. Nothing else registered. Other passengers were definitely listening now. A businessman across the aisle had lowered his newspaper, watching with barely concealed disdain. An elderly couple nearby exchanged knowing looks. Rebecca's assistant had her eyes closed, clearly wishing she could disappear. Finally, mercifully, the plane began to taxi. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure." Rebecca buckled her seatbelt, still talking. "You know, Ethan wanted me to be co-founder of his new startup. Can you imagine? Me, co-founder of a tech company. I don't know anything about tech, but he says I'm brilliant at connecting with people. 25 million in funding. It's going to be huge." I put in my earbuds. A clear signal that the conversation was over. She pouted but finally turned to her phone, scrolling through Instagram and occasionally showing me posts that I pretended not to see. The plane took off smoothly. Once we reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign turned off, I thought maybe, finally, I could get some sleep. Rebecca ordered more champagne. I declined again. She made a comment about me being no fun anymore, then launched into a story about a party at some celebrity's house that I definitely didn't care about. I was just about to give up and move to an empty seat in economy when I heard it. A commotion from first class. Raised voices. Someone shouting for help. The flight attendant call button started chiming urgently. Multiple buttons. All at once. A man's voice, panicked, "We need help. He's not breathing." Rebecca stopped mid-sentence, champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. The entire cabin seemed to hold its breath. Then the PA system crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical situation on board. Please remain calm and stay seated with your seatbelts fastened." Through the gap in the first-class curtain, I caught a glimpse of chaos. A man collapsed in the aisle. Flight attendants rushing toward him. The urgent, controlled panic that happens when something goes very wrong very fast. Another announcement: "Is there a doctor on board? We have a medical emergency. If you're a medical professional, please identify yourself to the flight crew immediately." Rebecca grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Oh my God, what's happening? Is someone dying?" I gently removed her hand and stood up, instinctively moving toward first class. Years of training had taught me to move toward emergencies, not away from them. But the flight attendants had it under control, managing the scene professionally. A woman was already making her way forward from economy, presumably a doctor responding to the call. "Sir, please return to your seat," a flight attendant said, gently but firmly. I sat back down. Through the curtain, I could hear everything. The doctor introducing herself, Dr. Rachel Kim, cardiologist. The rapid questions about symptoms. The sound of medical equipment being opened. Then the word that made everything real: "He's in VFib. I need the AED. Everyone clear." The automated external defibrillator. Heart attack. Serious. Rebecca had gone pale, all her earlier bravado evaporating. "Oh my God," she kept repeating. "Oh my God." The mechanical voice of the AED counting, analyzing rhythm. "Do not touch the patient. Shock advised. Charging." The cabin was completely silent now except for that mechanical voice. Everyone listening. Everyone afraid. Shock delivered. A tense pause that felt like hours. Then Dr. Kim's voice, strained but relieved: "I've got a pulse. Weak, but it's there. He needs a hospital immediately." The captain's voice came over the PA, professional but urgent: "Folks, this is Captain Morrison. We're aware of the medical emergency and we're diverting to Newark Airport for an emergency medical landing. ETA approximately 30 minutes. Medical personnel will be standing by. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." 30 minutes. The man had 30 minutes to stay stable. 30 minutes between life and death. Rebecca was trembling. "Are we safe? Is the plane okay? What if?" "The plane is fine," I said quietly. "They're just getting him to a hospital. But we're diverting. That's not normal. What if something's wrong with the plane too?" "Rebecca, it's a precaution. Everything's under control." She didn't look convinced. For the first time since boarding, she looked genuinely vulnerable. Human. The mask had slipped. The plane was changing altitude, descending slightly. I could feel it in my ears. Captain Morrison was probably requesting priority routing to Newark, getting clearance for the emergency approach. Standard procedure, executed perfectly. But then something changed. The plane suddenly dropped. Not a gentle descent, a violent lurch that sent carry-on luggage rattling in overhead bins. Passengers screamed. My stomach lurched with the sudden altitude loss. Then we were sideways. The plane banking hard to the left, then overcorrecting to the right. Turbulence. Severe turbulence. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, swinging wildly. The cabin tilted at an impossible angle. Through the window, I saw lightning flash in clouds we shouldn't be in. Flight attendants, take your seats immediately. Captain Morrison's voice, strained now. Not panicked, but definitely stressed. Passengers, secure your oxygen masks. We're experiencing severe turbulence. The plane shook violently. People were screaming, crying, praying. Rebecca was shrieking something about dying. Her assistant was curled in her seat, eyes squeezed shut. In first class, Dr. Kim was shouting, I need help. I can't keep him steady. We'd flown straight into a storm cell. Unexpected, developing rapidly, not on the radar when we took off. It happens sometimes. Weather is unpredictable. But this was bad. Really bad. The plane dropped again, losing altitude in seconds. Warning alarms were going off. I could hear them from the cockpit even with the door closed. The grinding sound of the aircraft fighting wind shear. Then, through the chaos, another sound. A crash from the cockpit. Something heavy hitting something hard. And then the announcement that made my blood run cold. Is there a pilot on board who can assist in the cockpit? We need immediate assistance. Not a doctor anymore. A pilot. Something had happened to the crew. Rebecca's scream pierced through the chaos, we're going to die. The PA crackled again, the flight attendant's voice shaking. If you're a qualified pilot, please identify yourself immediately. This is urgent. I was already unbuckling my seatbelt. Already moving. The flight attendant who'd brought my water earlier was scanning the cabin desperately, looking for someone, anyone, who could help. Our eyes met. I saw recognition flash across her face. Not personal recognition, professional recognition. She'd seen my crew badge when I'd boarded through the employee entrance. She pushed through the aisle, fighting the turbulence, grabbing seat backs for balance. Rebecca grabbed my wrist. Where are you going? Sit down. We're going to crash. The flight attendant reached my row, breathless. Captain Reeves? Captain Daniel Reeves? Is that you? I nodded. She nearly sobbed with relief. Thank God. Captain Morrison needs you in the cockpit. Now. Rebecca's grip tightened on my wrist. Her eyes were wide with confusion and terror. Captain? You're a pilot. I gently but firmly pulled free. Flight attendant, get her secured. I was already moving toward the cockpit, the world narrowing to the task ahead. Behind me, I heard Rebecca's voice, small and shocked. He's a pilot? But I didn't look back. Didn't have time. Because through the open cockpit door, I could see the problem. First Officer Park slumped in the right seat, blood on his forehead. Captain Morrison flying alone, her hands white-knuckled on the yoke, screens showing angry reds and yellows from the weather radar. She was fighting the storm by herself. And she needed help. I stepped into the cockpit, my home away from home, and said, Captain Morrison? I'm Captain Daniel Reeves. Let me help. She glanced at me, and I saw the relief in her eyes even as she kept fighting the plane. Credentials? I pulled out my pilot's license, always carried in my wallet. Captain Daniel Reeves, 8 years commercial, 5 years military test pilot. Current type rating includes 737 series. She took a half-second look, made her decision. Test pilot? Where? Edwards Air Force Base. Experimental Aircraft Division. Her eyes widened. Take the right seat. First Officer Park, you're relieved. Park protested weakly. Captain, I can. You're concussed, I said, already moving. You did your job getting her this far. Now let me take it. A flight attendant helped Park out of the seat. I strapped in, the familiar weight of the harness settling across my chest. My hands found the controls immediately. Different plane than I usually flew, but fundamentals are fundamentals. The yoke, the throttles, the rudder pedals. All where they should be. The plane lurched again. Wind shear alarm screaming. What's our situation? I asked, already scanning instruments. 23 minutes from Newark, Morrison said, voice tight. Level 5 storm cell. Wind shear. Medical emergency in the cabin. First officer got hit by flying debris during the initial turbulence, laptop from an overhead came loose. I've been alone for 10 minutes and it's taking everything I've got. I've got radio and NAV, I said. You keep flying. Can you handle Boeing 737-800? Not my usual bird, but I'm rated. Talk me through anything different. She nodded. You've got it. Main thing, this particular aircraft has sensitive rudder response in turbulence. Don't overcontrol. Copy that. I plugged into the radio headset, immediately got ATC on frequency. Newark Tower, this is United 2847 Heavy, new first officer on station, declaring emergency, continuing approach. The controller's voice came back, United 2847, Roger. We have you on emergency priority. Be advised, multiple aircraft reporting severe turbulence and wind shear on approach. Winds 340 at 45, gusting to 60. Visibility 1 mile in heavy rain. Emergency vehicles are standing by. Copy, Newark. United 2847 continuing. I looked at Morrison. Her jaw was set, eyes focused, hands steady despite the airplane trying to kill us. Wind shear and 60-knot gusts. This is going to be fun. She almost smiled. Define fun. The kind where we earn our pay. The plane dropped again. I called it out, losing altitude, 500 feet. Morrison added power, leveled us out. I hate this storm. Storm's just weather. It doesn't hate us back. I was checking instruments, getting oriented. How's the medical emergency? Last update, Dr. Kim has him stable but critical. Every minute counts. Then let's not waste any. For the next 20 minutes, Morrison and I flew in perfect synchronization. She handled the actual flying, steering, altitude, power. I handled everything else, radios, navigation, checklists, systems monitoring. We talked constantly. Professionally. Efficiently. Airspeed decreasing, 190 knots. Adding power. 2 degrees left of course. Correcting. Roger. 15 miles to outer marker. Copy. The storm fought us every second. Updrafts that tried to throw us into the ceiling. Downdrafts that tried to slam us into the ground. Wind shear that made the plane yaw wildly. Rain so heavy the windscreen wipers were useless. But Morrison was brilliant. Every input smooth and precise. Every correction exactly what was needed. She was flying manually, autopilot couldn't handle these conditions, and doing it better than most pilots could in perfect weather. You've done this before, I said during a brief moment of calmer air. Afghanistan. Military airlift. Flew into plenty of combat zones. Air Force. Marines. C-130s. You. Air Force. Test pilot. Test pilot explains why you're so calm right now. This is actually pretty tame compared to some of the experimental flights. She laughed. Actually laughed. Tame. Right. Let's call it that. The plane shuddered through another violent shake. Lightning flashed so close I saw spots. But Morrison's hands never wavered. And I kept calling numbers, keeping her informed, handling the radio traffic. Behind us, through the open cockpit door, I could hear the cabin. Dr. Kim giving updates on the cardiac patient. Flight attendants trying to keep passengers calm. Someone praying loudly. Rebecca's voice, smaller than before, asking if we were going to be okay. We had to be okay. 300 people were counting on us. 10 miles to threshold. Copy. Starting descent. Newark Tower, United 2847, 10 miles out. Roger 2847. Cleared to land runway 22 left. Winds now 350 at 5.5, gusting 6.8. Previous aircraft reported severe turbulence final approach. Morrison and I exchanged a glance. 68-knot gusts. That was pushing the aircraft limits. We're landing, Morrison said firmly. That man in first class doesn't have time for us to circle. Agreed. Let's bring it home. 5 miles. Gear down. The landing gear extended into the wind with a heavy thunk. The plane shuddered more violently. Flaps 30. More drag. More buffeting. But we were configured for landing now. Final approach checklist. I ran through it, calling out items. Morrison confirmed each one. Everything was set. 3 miles. Through breaks in the clouds, I could see lights below. Newark. Civilization. Safety. Almost there. Wind shear alert, I called. I see it. The plane dropped suddenly. 50 feet of altitude gone in seconds. Morrison added power, pulled back on the yoke. We recovered, but barely. 2 miles. Sync rate 700. Speed good. 1 mile. I have the runway. Through the rain, through the darkness, runway lights appeared. Wavering. Dancing in the wind. But there. 500 feet. Wind caught us, pushed us left. Morrison corrected. Then right. She corrected again. The plane was all over the sky, but she was in control. 300 feet. 200. Wind shear. The plane dropped and yawed simultaneously. Morrison fought it. Power up. Wing level. Nose on the numbers. 100 feet. You're good, you're good. 50. The runway was rushing up. Rain hammering. Wind howling. 30. 20. 10. Morrison flared at the last possible second. The main wheels kissed the concrete so smoothly I barely felt it. Then the nose gear. We were down. Reverse thrust. She pulled the levers. The engines roared. We decelerated hard. The plane tracking straight despite the crosswind. Welcome to Newark, I said. Morrison laughed breathlessly. Best damn landing I've ever made. We taxied off the runway. Emergency vehicles immediately surrounded us, ambulances, fire trucks, everything. Red and blue lights flashing through the rain. The cabin erupted in applause. Crying. Relief. People were clapping and sobbing and praying all at once. Morrison set the parking brake and shut down the engines. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up. Captain Reeves, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here. You would have handled it. You're an excellent pilot. Maybe. But I'm damn glad I didn't have to find out. She extended her hand. Thank you. I shook it. Just doing my job. Through the cockpit door, I could see them loading the cardiac patient onto a stretcher. Dr. Kim climbed into the ambulance with him, still working. He was alive. We'd gotten him here in time. Morrison and I sat for another minute, completing shutdown checklists on autopilot. My hands were steady, but I could feel the delayed adrenaline crash coming. That always happened after emergencies. The body finally understanding the danger it had been in. A flight attendant appeared at the cockpit door. Captains, the passengers want to thank you. Morrison waved her off. Just doing our job. They're all standing. Waiting. I looked at Morrison. She sighed. All right. Let's go face the crowd. I stood, straightening my shirt. My legs felt strange after the adrenaline rush. Solid ground, or solid aircraft, after flying through hell. Captain Reeves? Morrison said. Your fan club is probably out there. I grimaced. Something like that. We walked out into the cabin together. Passengers were standing, many crying with relief, some still shaking. They broke into applause when they saw us. People reaching out, trying to shake hands, thanking us over and over. I stayed professional. Thanked them. Told them Captain Morrison deserved the credit. Tried to move through the cabin quickly because I just wanted off this plane, wanted to file the incident report, wanted to process what had just happened. But then I saw her. Rebecca. Standing in the aisle, blocking my path. Her mascara was streaked from crying, her earlier bravado completely gone. She looked genuinely shaken. But the moment our eyes met, I saw something shift in her expression. Not humility. Opportunism. Oh my God, Danny, she said, her voice carrying through the cabin. I knew it. I always knew you were special. I was just telling my assistant earlier, didn't I say he was always destined for greatness? Complete 180 from 3 hours ago. She pulled out her phone. We need a photo. This is incredible. My followers are going to love this. I was exhausted. Done. Rebecca, 3 hours ago you were calling me a failure. She laughed nervously, aware that other passengers were listening now. Putting the pieces together. I was joking. You know my sense of humor. Obviously I knew you'd done well. I mean, business class, aviation career. You thought I was a baggage handler. Her face flushed. I think you misunderstood. I didn't misunderstand anything. I looked at her directly. Rebecca, you spent the entire boarding process explaining why you were better than me. Why your life was perfect. Why I was a failure. Now you want a photo? The cabin had gone quiet. Everyone watching this unfold. I never said you were a failure. You did. Multiple times. And honestly? I don't care. I stepped past her. I'm just glad everyone on this plane is alive. That's the only thing that matters tonight. Captain Morrison was at my shoulder, a slight smile on her face. Captain Reeves, airline management needs to debrief us. It was a rescue. She'd seen what was happening and intervened. I followed Morrison toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Rebecca's assistant say quietly, that was really messed up, what you said to him earlier. Rebecca's response was too quiet to hear. But I didn't need to hear it. I was done with Rebecca Martinez. Done with her games. Done with her toxicity. We'd all survived. The cardiac patient was on his way to the hospital. The plane was safely on the ground. That was what mattered. Everything else was just noise. 3 days later, I was watching myself on TV. The story had exploded. Off-duty pilot saves flight during triple emergency. My face was on CNN, Fox News, every major outlet. The cardiac patient, his name was Robert Chen, no relation to Rebecca's husband, had survived. He did interviews from his hospital bed, tearfully thanking Captain Morrison, Dr. Kim, and me. Said we were heroes. Captain Morrison gave interviews praising my skills, my calmness under pressure. She told one reporter, Captain Reeves has test pilot experience, and it showed. He handled that emergency like he'd done it 1,000 times. The airline gave me a commendation. Offered me fast track to international routes. My friends were texting constantly. My mom called crying, saying she'd watched the news coverage and was so proud. My younger sister posted about it on Facebook, calling me her hero. I did one interview. Stayed professional. Gave credit to Morrison and Dr. Kim. Explained that I was just following my training, that any qualified pilot would have done the same. Then I declined all other interview requests and tried to go back to normal life. But normal life wasn't normal anymore. People recognized me in airports. Passengers on my flights would request selfies. Other pilots treated me differently, with more respect, more curiosity. It was exhausting. I just wanted to fly planes and be left alone. Comment below, would you have revealed you were a pilot immediately to shut her up, or waited for the perfect moment like I did? Because what happened next proved that karma doesn't need your help, it handles things just fine on its own. What I didn't know was that 3,000 miles away, in a Manhattan penthouse, someone else was watching that same news coverage with growing confusion. Ethan Chen, tech CEO, was sitting at his desk scrolling through articles about the emergency landing when he saw the pilot's name, Captain Daniel Reeves. That name sounded familiar. Where had he heard it before? Then he remembered. Rebecca had mentioned it. Her loser ex-boyfriend from middle school who dropped out and went nowhere. She'd told that story as a cautionary tale during one of their early dates. Never settle, she'd said. Look what happens when you have no ambition. But this decorated pilot was the loser dropout? The story didn't match. Ethan Chen was a CEO because he was smart, analytical, and suspicious when numbers didn't add up. And this didn't add up. He opened his laptop and did what he always did when something seemed wrong. He investigated. Started with basic searches. Found articles about Daniel Reeves, commercial airline captain, 8 years of experience, former Air Force test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base, multiple commendations for safety and skill. That wasn't a dropout loser. That was someone accomplished and respected. So why had Rebecca described him so differently? Ethan's mind started turning. If she'd lied about that, what else had she lied about? He pulled up Rebecca's location history on her phone. They had each other's access, supposedly for safety, but Ethan used it for business tracking too. She'd been in Los Angeles yesterday. Said it was for influencer brand meetings. But her location history showed high-end shopping districts, luxury spas, a cosmetic surgery clinic. No business meetings. She'd lied. One lie led to investigating another. Ethan pulled credit card statements, something he'd been meaning to review anyway. What he found made his blood run cold. Secret credit cards he didn't know about. Charges totaling over $200,000. Designer clothes. Jewelry. Cosmetic procedures. Hotels. Restaurants. All hidden. He sat back in his chair, staring at the numbers. This wasn't just shopping. This was systematic deception. Ethan Chen didn't get where he was by ignoring red flags. He made a phone call. To a private investigator he'd used for corporate due diligence. I need a personal background check, he said. On my wife. The investigator was good. Discreet, thorough, fast. 2 weeks later, Ethan had a report that destroyed his marriage. Rebecca Martinez wasn't just a shopaholic. She was a fraud. The hidden credit card debt. An affair with her personal trainer, confirmed through multiple sources. Her Instagram followers? Mostly bought. Fake accounts. Her engagement metrics? Artificially inflated. Brands were starting to investigate her for fraudulent sponsorship claims. But the worst part, the part that made Ethan physically ill, was the charity. The Children's Hospital Gala she was so proud of hosting. The investigator had followed the money. Every donation made to Rebecca's charity fund was supposed to go directly to the hospitals. But 20% was being skimmed into personal accounts. Rebecca's personal accounts. She was stealing from sick children. Ethan stared at that report for hours. He'd been ready to make this woman co-founder of his new startup. 50-50 equity split. $25 million at stake. If he'd signed those papers before discovering this. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer. 2 weeks after the emergency landing, I was walking through LaGuardia during a layover when someone called my name. Captain Reeves? I turned. A man in his mid-30s, expensive suit, exhausted eyes, stood holding a coffee and looking at me like he'd been searching for me. Yes? He extended his hand. Ethan Chen. I know this is strange, but do you have a moment? I promise I'm not a reporter. The name clicked. Rebecca's husband. For now. Not for much longer. He gestured to the airline lounge. Can we talk? Just a few minutes. I wanted to thank you. I was confused but curious. We went to the lounge. He had access through his business travel status. Found a quiet corner away from other travelers. Ethan got straight to the point. I saw the news coverage of the emergency landing, he said. Recognized your name. Rebecca had told me about you. Her dropout ex-boyfriend, who went nowhere. I grimaced. Yeah, she mentioned that on the flight too. But you're a commercial airline captain with military test pilot experience. That's not nowhere. That's exceptional. He paused. So I started wondering what else she'd lied about. And? Everything. He pulled out his phone, showing me a private investigator's report. 250,000 in secret debt. An affair with her personal trainer. Instagram fraud, fake followers, bot engagement. And this, he scrolled to a section that made my jaw drop. The charity gala. She's been stealing from children's hospitals. I read the summary. The dates. The amounts. The evidence. My God. I was about to make her co-founder of my startup. 25 million at stake. Ethan's voice was tight. If I'd signed those papers before discovering this. Captain Reeves, that news coverage didn't just save the passengers on your plane. It saved me. How? Because seeing you described as this decorated, skilled pilot, when Rebecca had painted you as a failure, that was the crack that broke open everything else. I started questioning. Investigating. And I found the truth. He took a drink of his coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I wanted to thank you, he continued. And apologize. Rebecca treated you terribly on that flight, didn't she? I nodded. She did. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm learning she treats most people terribly when she thinks there's no consequence. I was just too close to see it. He stood. I'm filing for divorce today. My lawyers have everything. With the fraud, the infidelity, the charity theft, the prenup is void. She gets nothing. Actually, she'll owe money for the marital funds she misused. What about the charity fraud? The hospitals are pressing charges. She'll likely face criminal prosecution. He extended his hand. Captain Reeves, thank you. For being good at your job. For making the news. For inadvertently saving me from the biggest mistake of my life. I shook his hand. I'm sorry your marriage is ending this way. I'm not. Better to learn the truth now than years from now with kids involved. He paused. For what it's worth, you seem like you dodged a bullet back in middle school. I did. Though I didn't know it at the time. Funny how that works out. He checked his watch. I need to get to my gate. But thank you, Captain. Truly. He left. I sat there for a moment, processing everything. Then I checked my own gate. I had a flight to London in an hour, and went back to my normal routine. Pre-flight checks. Meeting my crew. Boarding passengers. Just another day. Over the next 3 months, I watched Rebecca's world crumble from a distance. The news broke about the charity fraud first. Investigative journalists had gotten tips, probably from Ethan's team. Influencer under investigation for children's hospital charity scam. Then the divorce filing became public. Tech CEO files for divorce, cites fraud and infidelity. Then brands started distancing themselves. Sponsorship deals canceled. Investigation into fake followers and engagement fraud. Her Instagram engagement collapsed as the bot followers disappeared. The children's hospitals released statements confirming discrepancies in donation amounts. Donors were furious. Criminal investigations opened. Rebecca's influencer accounts went quiet, then disappeared entirely. She deleted everything. My friends texted me the articles. Dude, isn't this your ex? The one from the plane. I responded simply, karma's real. Because it was. I hadn't done anything except be good at my job. Hadn't exposed her, hadn't confronted her, hadn't sought revenge. I just lived my life with integrity and skill. And that was enough. Rebecca's downfall was entirely her own doing. The lies caught up. The fraud got exposed. The fake life collapsed under its own weight. I felt no pleasure in her suffering. But I felt no sympathy either. She'd built her life on hurting other people, on making herself feel superior by making others feel small. Eventually, that kind of foundation crumbles. Meanwhile, my life continued. I got promoted to international routes like the airline had promised. Started flying the London route regularly, a beautiful flight I loved. Met someone special at an aviation conference, a flight surgeon named Dr. Sarah Martinez who'd worked with test pilots and understood my background. We started dating. It was easy and natural in a way relationships should be but rarely are. My sister finished college. My mom was healthy and happy. I mentored young pilots at the airline's training program, teaching them not just how to fly but how to handle pressure with grace. Life was good. Quiet. Meaningful. 6 months after the emergency landing, everything came full circle in a way I never expected. I was captaining a flight from JFK to London. Standard route I'd flown dozens of times. During my pre-flight walkthrough, something I always did, checking the cabin, greeting passengers, making sure everything looked good, I passed through economy class. That's when I saw her. Seat 42F. Rebecca Martinez. She looked different. No designer clothes. No makeup. Hair in a simple ponytail. Discount athleisure that had seen better days. She was staring out the window, looking exhausted and small and utterly defeated. She didn't notice me at first. I could have walked past. Should have walked past. But our eyes met. Recognition. Then shame. Then something that might have been an attempt at a smile. She opened her mouth to say something. Probably an apology, maybe a plea, possibly an excuse. I didn't give her the chance. I gave her the same professional, courteous nod I gave every passenger. Welcome aboard. We'll be departing shortly. That's it. No anger. No gloating. No acknowledgement of history. Just professional indifference. She was just one of 300 passengers, and I had a plane to fly. I continued my walkthrough. Checked the galleys. Confirmed with the flight attendants that everything was ready. Returned to the cockpit. My first officer, a competent young woman named Chen, no relation to Ethan, looked up from her checklist. Captain, cabin is secured. Good. Let's run through our checklist. We went through the pre-flight routine. Methodical. Precise. Comfortable. This was where I belonged. This was what I was meant to do. You seem relaxed today, Chen said. Just another flight. That's what I love about this job. Every day is the same, but somehow different. I smiled. Exactly. Tower cleared us for pushback. We started engines. Taxied to the runway. Everything routine and perfect. In the back, in seat 42F, Rebecca was flying economy on a plane I was commanding. The girl who'd mocked me for not being successful enough was now a passenger on my flight. The woman who'd measured worth in designer labels and Instagram followers was wearing discount clothes and had deleted her accounts. The person who'd built her identity on being better than everyone else was reduced to being just another traveler trying to get from point A to point B. Perfect poetic justice. But I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about the flight ahead. About the responsibility of 300 lives. About the beauty of the sunrise we'd fly toward. About the career I'd built from nothing, through sacrifice and determination and love of what I do. United 447, you're cleared for takeoff, runway 31 right. United 447, cleared for takeoff. Takeoff checklist complete, Chen said. Ready when you are, Captain. I advanced the throttles. The engine spooled up, that beautiful sound of power building. The plane started rolling, faster, faster, the runway lights blurring past. Rotation speed. I pulled back gently on the yoke. The nose wheel lifted. Then the main gear. And we were airborne. Climbing into the dawn sky, leaving the ground behind, entering the space where I belonged. This was success. Not measured in dollars or followers or designer bags. Measured in skill. In responsibility. In doing something meaningful and doing it well. Rebecca had spent 15 years trying to prove she was better than me. Better than everyone. But she'd measured success all wrong. Real success isn't about being better than others. It's about being the best version of yourself. It's about mastering something difficult. It's about contributing something meaningful. It's about building a life on genuine competence instead of borrowed superiority. I'd done that. Quietly. Without fanfare. Without needing to put anyone else down to lift myself up. And now I was here. 35,000 feet above the Atlantic, flying 300 people safely toward their destinations, doing what I'd dreamed of doing since I was a kid. Rebecca was somewhere behind me in 42F. Just another passenger on just another flight. And I was exactly where I was meant to be. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reeves from the flight deck. I spoke into the PA system, my voice carrying through the entire aircraft. On behalf of the entire crew, welcome aboard. We're expecting smooth air and clear skies ahead. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight to London. Behind me, I imagined Rebecca hearing my voice. Finally understanding what success actually meant. That it wasn't about the loudest voice or the biggest show. It was about quiet competence. About doing something difficult with grace. About building a life that mattered. The sun was rising ahead of us, painting the sky in golds and pinks and oranges. The view that never got old no matter how many times I saw it. The view Rebecca had claimed to be tired of but had never really understood. This was my office. My calling. My purpose. And I was grateful for every moment of it. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Comment below, would you have confronted Rebecca directly, or taken the high road like I did? Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's living well and letting your actions speak louder than words. See you in the next one.